we listened to Equal Sign by Ed Sheeran, so you don't have to. Ed Sheeran. Um,
Best intro ever to an album
Ed
so far.
Sheeran for the children. So
14 songs, 48 minutes long. Don't listen to it.
straight down. Here's the top line thing. If you've heard an Ed Sheeran album before, if you've heard an Ed Sheeran song before, you've heard this album.
The thing with this is my favorite thing, right? Is Ed Sheeran says, "This is my favorite album I've ever made." I go, "Well, that's rough, buddy.
Ooh,
That is real rough skis, buddy."
I didn't know he said that.
Um,
You don't want to come out of the gates with that now.
yeah, I think he posted it on his IG or something. I remember seeing it through uh, probably on the Audioface account. I saw that and I go, "Oh my god, he did not just put that." And then Vanessa told me the same thing. She's like, "Oh yeah," he said, "This is his best album." And she
Kicks
goes,
trash
"Please don't tell
cans.
me." She goes, "Please don't tell me it's bad." I'm like, "Kick some trash cans." It's rough. So like
uh,
it goes okay. The opening song isn't horrible. It starts off like a normal kind of alt rock song, kind of early Ed Sheeran sound. I was like, okay, but it's interesting because his singles are ass. So let's see what happens. And then right after Tides, you have ass number one, which is
uh,
Shivers, which is
uh. Sean's
one of
favorite
the
song.
worst songs I've had to do on this podcast. This is up there with the Fall Out Boy song where it took me not 0.3 seconds of I'm like, I can't listen to this track. It
Pull the
has
plug immediately.
trap, snare, snap, clap all at the same time. I go, I didn't know you could do that together and make it sound that bad. I didn't know it sound that bad when you like you implement it all together. And it's horrible.
Yeah, it's powerfully bad. I like I guess Ed Sheeran just one of those like super pop stars in the top like 10 or so maybe that has that appeal because like Shivers is one of the top streaming songs on Spotify. Bad Habits, which is the
Bad
lead
song.
single, was one of the
Also bad
top
song.
streaming songs on Spotify. We reviewed that as a lead single and we were like, yeah, I'm
Well,
not
yeah,
looking
at
optimistic
least
for Ed
with Bad
Sheeran.
Habits, it's like it's just an overly generic pop song. Shivers is a legitimately bad song. Like no, like you did do not pass go, do not collect $200. Your third grade teacher wouldn't even give you a star of like approval of like you tried. You don't even get a you tried sticker. This the teacher walks by and goes, he's not making it out third grade, and you just walk by.
Did you ever have one of those like elementary school teachers who like kept a green, yellow, and a red card for every student in the classroom?
Yeah.
First of all, future arbitrary scale. Second of all,
Oh my god, yeah.
Second of all, that was just very reminiscent of that. One thing, if we go to song 5, Overpass Graffiti, I was like, wow, did Ed Sheeran do a Coldplay cover? Which is one of the most like god awful sentences I've ever said on this podcast.
Well, I mean, I wanted to make the Coldplay comparison of an artist who started out pretty well, like Ed Sheeran, right? Started out with what is it, Plus, his first album in 2011, and it's like Tame Impala, where he makes everything he did. He would mix it, and he would do it live on stage too. He would mix everything, all completely himself. He would, loop guitars, do all that, which is very difficult to do. And I thought I never was super into his music, but I appreciated like him as a musician because I know how difficult it is to do all of that. And I thought the music was fine, nothing like too special, but he blew up and I was like, oh, that's okay. But then when Divide came out in 2017, that's when he made the Coldplay pivot of the cash cow of you 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 lose becoming a musician and you start to become a celebrity. And then there's that fine line between being a celebrity and being a musician. And a lot of these pop artists cross that line into the celebrity hold. So then they lose their music.
And I
And
think
that's, yeah.
I was gonna say like just to like jump off of that point, one major thing to add that I just feel like I'm able to kind of illustrate right now is that when you are a pop artist and you get fame for being a pop artist, a lot of that almost becomes like a security blanket in one way, but it truly restricts your ability to branch out and try different things because when you do that, even if like critics acclaim it and think this is a really good like nice step and it's bold for doing something different and people love it, people are ultimately going to not like it because it's different than the stuff that made you popular. That's just the nature of pop music. People are going to have a bunch of different opinions about it unless it's the same thing. And so you can look at that and go, I don't want to be criticized, or like I'll be criticized for being popular. I don't care because people like me. And that seems to be kind of like an Ed Sheeran Coldplay kind of thing. And there's a lot
Exactly.
of,
Yep.
I will say there's a lot of artists who get like unfair criticism for like this kind of thing of blowing up and being large. But I think to be able to balance that and take that with actually branching out somewhere with the music is something that should be tried. This sounds way too much like, maybe a slightly dancier, which everyone's doing, just a more dancey version of everything now because that's pop music. It's just become more like 80s, 70s disco, electronic synth dance. But maybe this is a slightly dancier version of division symbol, or slightly dancier version of time symbol, or etc. Right? Like Ed Sheeran's been at this for almost a decade now, a decade at
For a
it.
decade. Yeah.
Yeah.
2011.
So in a decade's work, like you see a lot of artists where sometimes they change for the better or for the worse, but they change a
Yeah.
lot. I don't see that from Ed Sheeran at all from this thing. And
There's the pivot on Divide, where that's where it really pivots to me from the Coldplay sellout aspect of one musician becomes so popular that they lose themselves and become a celebrity, and then they lose their art form. They lose what made them became to become a musician, I should say. Um, and you see it a lot, and it's kind of tragic in a way for our aspect of it. But honestly, going into the music, it's nothing special. It's overly produced, very generic. You don't really have to deal with listening to it. You mean listen to the first three, four tracks, and you know what the rest of the album is going to sound like. It's nothing too special. There's a lot more good music, which we'll review in a little bit, that is out there and being made that you can save your time for and make more of an effort to that, to things that should be getting out more to the masses.
it's, it's true, and I can use this as an example. If you do listen to the whole Ed Sheeran album, you will feel fatigued. You will feel tired because you are just like listening to stuff that's just like drivel. It's not really like, it's just kind of blurring together. And
Hmm.
that will help you to sympathize with the feeling it can be like sometimes as like music critics on Audioface, especially when you get an artist like that who is just repeatedly pumping out something that's just too similar. Like that, like I'm constantly looking for ways to go like, okay, even though this seems simple to us, Sean, like this is an audience thing. So like, okay, how can the audience understand what it feels like to be in our shoes? Put yourself through Ed Sheeran's album like all the way through, and you will be exactly where we're at. Like, I guarantee it. A lot of
Yeah,
times music criticism is like, it's subjective. You could fall on either side of it, but
100%.
it's so uninspired. I just like press play and we'll talk about it. I just
Yep.
guarantee it.
Yep.
Comment
Exactly.
below if you disagree, honestly. Um, Arbitrary scale this week. We do arbitrary scales every single week on Audioface because what we said in the review is what we said in the review. If we put a number to it, then I mean that would trigger a lot of engagement in the comment section. But
Not it would.
let's also talk about Facebook and alternative names for Facebook. Facebook this week changed their name, or this past week changed their brand company name to Meta, to because Mark Zuckerberg's lost in the sauce as always. I'm not even going to try to justify their corporate reasoning. Something metaverse, Oculus goggles. Just to quote several women in my life, Mark Zuckerberg should go back to the women rating website and just leave everyone else alone. Just go back to rating
Oh
chicks,
man,
dude. Just
just
like
yeah, right. Go back to rain chicks.
it's from humble beginnings. No, okay. Uh, this is if they named the company Pied Piper. Like they were
God
like,
damn.
listen,
Oh
we know it's
no.
listen, like we know this is Silicon Valley. We know it's a reference to a large evil company and all that stuff. That being said, we're gonna do it anyways.
I like it. I was gonna use a Pied Piper reference or a Hooli reference from Silicon Valley as well. Because
Yeah.
it's like it's one of those, we need to make the most generic, tech name thing ever. And make the app symbol like the most generic thing ever. Like we gotta make it sound stupid but catchy.
I'm
But
actually
on the inside it's killing people.